if you found this video in a quiet moment, when the noise of the world felt distant and something whispered that you needed to be here, listen to that whisper. You didn't arrive by accident. There are no accidents when it comes to the movements of the soul. Something in you recognized this space before your mind could name it. Something in you knew you needed to hear these words. And that knowing brought you here. Stay for the next 20 minutes. Not because I'm asking you to, but because something deeper than both of us is asking you to. Because you were drawn here for a reason. Before we begin, let me say this. What you're about to hear may not make logical sense. It may not fit into the framework you've been using to understand your life. But somewhere beneath the logic, beneath the need to explain and rationalize, there is a part of you that will recognize every word as truth. Trust that part. It has been guiding you all along, and it guided you here. Let's start with a question. How many times in your life have you ended up exactly where you needed to be without knowing how you got there? How many times have you stumbled upon a book, a conversation, a person, a moment that changed everything, and when you looked back you realized it wasn't random at all? It was orchestrated by something you couldn't see but could absolutely feel. This is one of those moments. You were drawn here for a reason. Not by the algorithm, though it played its part. Not by curiosity alone, though that was the doorway. You were drawn here by the same force that draws water to low ground, that draws roots toward nourishment, that draws the lost toward home. You were drawn here by necessity, by readiness, by the soul's recognition that it is time. Time for what? You might not know yet, and that's okay. The soul doesn't operate on the timeline of the conscious mind. It doesn't announce its plans in advance. It simply moves you, gently, persistently, toward what you need. And right now, what you need is to hear this. You are not wandering aimlessly. You are not lost. You are being guided, even when it doesn't feel like it, especially when it doesn't feel like it. Think about the path that brought you here. Think about the last few weeks, the last few months, maybe even the last few years. Haven't you felt it? That subtle pull away from what used to matter. That quiet disinterest in things that once consumed you. That inexplicable desire to be alone, to be still, to withdraw from the noise and the demands and the constant performance of being a person in the world. You might have resisted it. You might have told yourself you were being lazy, antisocial, depressed. You might have forced yourself to stay engaged, to keep showing up, to keep pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't fine because you were being called somewhere else. And the more you resisted, the louder the call became. Until finally you stopped resisting. You stopped fighting. You let yourself be pulled, and that pull brought you here. Here's what most people don't understand. The soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks in longings, in restlessness, in the quiet dissatisfaction that settles over your life like dust, making everything feel a little less vibrant, a little less meaningful. It speaks in the sudden loss of interest in things that used to excite you, in the inexplicable need to be alone, in the strange comfort you find in silence. These aren't symptoms of something wrong, they're signals. They're the soul's way of saying it's time to come home, time to stop living on the surface, time to stop performing, time to descend into the deeper layers of yourself where the real work happens, where the real transformation takes place, where you remember who you actually are beneath all the roles and identities and stories you've been carrying. And you've been feeling it, haven't you? That call to descend, that invitation to go inward. You might not have had words for it. You might have just felt tired, overwhelmed, done. But beneath the exhaustion was something else, a longing, a hunger for something you couldn't name but knew you needed. You were drawn here because you're ready, not because you feel ready, not because you think you're ready, but because your soul knows you're ready, ready to stop pretending, ready to stop performing, ready to stop living a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside, ready to finally, turn toward the quiet and see what's been waiting for you there. If you're feeling this right now, if something in your chest is opening as you hear these words, leave one word in the comments. Just one. No explanations. This space will hold it. Now let's talk about what happens when you stop resisting the pull, because that's where most people get stuck. They feel the call, they recognize the invitation. Terrified of what they might have to let go of, terrified of who they might become if they stop being who they've always been. And I understand that fear. I understand the resistance, because following the soul's call is not a small thing. It's not a weekend retreat or a self-help book or a new morning routine. It's a complete reorganization of your life. It's a shedding of everything that isn't essential. It's a death of the old self and a birth of something new. And death, even when it's necessary, even when it's holy, is terrifying. But here's what I need you to understand. The terror you feel at the thought of following this call is nothing compared to the terror of ignoring it. Because when you ignore the soul's call, when you silence that inner voice, when you choose comfort over truth, something inside you starts to die. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, one compromise at a time. You start to feel numb, disconnected, like you're watching your life from the outside instead of living it from the inside. You start going through the motions, doing what you're supposed to do, saying what you're supposed to say, but none of it feels real anymore. None of it touches you. You're just performing, just surviving. just waiting for something to change. And that something, that change you've been waiting for, it's not going to come from the outside. It's not going to be a new job, a new relationship, a new city, a new version of yourself that finally has it all together. The change you're waiting for is the one you're being called to make right now. The change of turning inward, of listening, of following the pull instead of resisting it. You were drawn here because it's time to stop waiting. Time to stop hoping that life will somehow get easier, clearer, more manageable. Time to accept that the path forward isn't out there in the world. It's in here, in the silence, in the stillness, in the sacred space of your own interior world. And I know that sounds vague. I know you want something more concrete. A plan, a roadmap, clear steps you can follow. But that's not how this works. The soul doesn't give you a map. It gives you a direction. And the direction is always the same. Inward, deeper, down into the layers of yourself you've been avoiding. The places you've been too busy or too afraid to visit. You were drawn here because those places are calling you now. The avoided grief, the unprocessed pain, the questions you've been too scared to ask, the truths you've been too overwhelmed to face. They're all down there waiting. Not to punish you, not to break you, but to free you. Because you can't become who you're meant to be while carrying all of that. You can't step into the fullness of your life while dragging the weight of your unlived past. So the soul, in its infinite wisdom, creates the conditions for descent. It pulls you away from distraction. It removes your interest in things that used to occupy you. It makes the surface of life feel unbearable so that you have no choice but to go deeper. Full of a love so vast and so unconditional that it does not need you to be anything other than exactly what you are right now. Broken, confused, exhausted, searching, it doesn't matter. The love is there. The presence is there. It has always been there. But now the surface world has lost its grip on you. Now you're free to descend. And in that descent, you will find everything you've been looking for. Not the things you thought you wanted. Not the achievements, the recognition, the validation, but the things you actually need. Peace, presence, purpose, a sense of belonging that doesn't depend on what you do or who you know or how well you perform. A belonging that simply is because you are, because you exist, because you are here. You were drawn here to remember that. To remember that you are not your accomplishments, you are not your failures. You are not the story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what your life is supposed to look like. You are something deeper, something eternal, something that cannot be diminished by circumstance or time or the opinions of others. And the only way to remember that is to stop, to be still, to let everything else fall away until all that's left is the essential you. The you that exists beneath all the layers of conditioning and expectation and performance. The you that has always been there, waiting, patient, ready to be rediscovered. This is why you were drawn here. Not to learn something new, not to fix yourself, not to become a better version of who you already are, but to strip away everything that isn't you until what remains is so true, so real, so undeniably authentic that you can't help but recognize it as home. If this is resonating, if you feel the truth of it in your body, subscribe to this channel. Not for me, for you. So that when the noise gets loud again, when the world tries to pull you back to the surface, you have a place to return to. A reminder that the depths are still here, still waiting, still holding space for you. And let me tell you what happens when you finally let yourself be drawn all the way in. When you stop resisting and start surrendering. When you allow the inward pull to take you as deep as it wants to go. You don't disappear. You don't lose yourself. You find yourself, the real self, the one that's been buried under years of should and supposed to and what will people think. You find the part of you that knows. That knew before you were taught to doubt. That knew before the world convinced you that you needed fixing. Not all at once, not in some dramatic lightning bolt moment of awakening, but slowly, quietly, one choice at a time. You start saying no to things that don't serve you. You start saying yes to things that do. You start trusting your inner guidance instead of looking for answers outside yourself. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. And people notice. They might not understand it. They might call it selfish or strange or concerning. They might tell you you've changed, and not in a good way, and they're right. You have changed. You've stopped pretending. You've stopped performing. Because your authenticity reminds them of their own performance. Your stillness highlights their chaos. Your peace threatens their justification for staying in the noise. But that's not your problem. Your problem if you can even call it that, is to keep following the pull, to keep descending, to keep choosing truth over comfort, depth over distraction, presence over productivity, because the world will always try to pull you back. It will always offer you 1,000 reasons to stay on the surface, to keep busy, to keep achieving, to keep proving your worth. But you were drawn here to remember that you don't have to prove anything. You never did. Your worth is inherent. Your value is not conditional. Your belonging is guaranteed simply because you exist. And the more deeply you know that, the less you need from the world. The less you need to be seen, validated, affirmed by others. Because you found the source of all those things within yourself. This is the gift of following the inward pull. This is what you were drawn here to receive. Not information, not inspiration, but permission. Permission to trust what you're feeling. Permission to follow where you're being led. Permission to let go of everything that's keeping you from the depths. You were drawn here because you're at a threshold. That sense that something is ending and something else is beginning. That sense that you can't go back to who you were, but you don't yet know who you are becoming. That sense of being suspended between worlds, between versions of yourself, between the life you've been living and the life that's trying to emerge. This threshold is sacred. It's uncomfortable. Yes, disorienting, absolutely. But it's also holy, because it's in these liminal spaces, these in-between places, that transformation actually happens. Not in the dramatic moments, not in the peak experiences, but here, in the not knowing, in the uncertainty, in the quiet terror of letting go without any guarantee of what comes next. And you were drawn here to be reminded that you don't need a guarantee. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the next step, just one. The step toward honesty, toward authenticity, toward the quiet voice inside that has been trying to get your attention for longer than you want to admit. And it will continue to draw you, step by step, into the fullness of who you actually are. But you have to let it. You have to stop resisting. You have to trust that being drawn is not the same as being lost. That being pulled inward is not the same as falling apart. That descent is not destruction. It's return. You were drawn here because you're ready to return. Ready to come home to yourself. Ready to stop living on autopilot, going through the motions. Pretending everything is fine when deep down you know it isn't. Ready to finally acknowledge what you've been feeling. The exhaustion. The emptiness. The sense that something is missing even though from the outside your life looks complete. What's missing is you. The real you. The you that got buried under expectations and obligations and the endless pursuit of enough. You got so busy trying to become someone that you forgot you already was someone worthy, someone whole, someone who didn't need to earn the right to exist, and now you're being called back, called home. But to be reminded, to be witnessed, to be held in a space that says, you don't have to explain yourself, you don't have to justify your choices. And maybe that scares you. Maybe you wish you could go back to not knowing what you know. Back to being able to distract yourself. Back to caring about things that don't matter. But you can't. Once you've felt the pull, once you've tasted the depths, once you've experienced even a moment of genuine presence, the surface world loses its appeal. It's not that you judge it. It's not that you think you're better than anyone else. It's just that you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you know. You were drawn here because you needed to hear that this is okay. That you're not broken for changing. That you're not wrong for wanting less instead of more. That you're not selfish for prioritizing your inner world over your outer achievements. You're just awake. You can only go forward, deeper, inward, home. Before we close, I want you to do something. That this wasn't random. That something in you knew you needed this. And I want you to trust that same something to continue guiding you, to continue drawing you toward what you need when you need it. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have a plan. You just have to keep listening. Keep following. Keep trusting the pull. Leave one word below. Just one. Whatever word represents where you are right now. No context needed. No explanation required. Just a single word that honors this moment. This threshold. This sacred pause between who you were and who you're becoming. We've reached the end of our time together. But this isn't really an ending. It's a beginning. The beginning of you honoring the inward pull instead of resisting it. The beginning of you living from the inside out instead of constantly trying to meet external expectations. You were drawn here for a reason. And that reason is simple. You're ready. Ready to stop hiding, ready to stop performing, ready to stop waiting for permission to be who you actually are, ready to descend into the depths and discover that what you thought was darkness is actually the richest, most nourishing soil you've ever encountered. This is where transformation happens, not in the light, not on the surface, but here, in the deep, in the hidden, in the sacred interior that only you can access. Time to stop asking others to validate your experience. Time to trust what you know in your bones to be true, even when you can't explain it to anyone else. You were drawn here, and you will continue to be drawn deeper, inward, home. Trust that. You were drawn here, and you were drawn here for a reason. That reason is you, the real you, the essential you, the you that has been waiting beneath the surface, patient and persistent, for you to finally come home.